Well, I've just fired up Assassin's Creed Unity and it turns out I'm a hedge. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is now over a year old, and with Ubisoft ending the title update support for the game, this means that surely they're focusing now on their next Assassin's Creed game. So I thought it's high time I sat down and made a video talking about what I would want from Assassin's Creed 2020, because let's face it, Ubisoft don't delay things, so I have few doubts that we'll see the next Assassin's Creed in 2020. I'm going to try to keep it as chill as possible and deliver my thoughts in a raw fashion. I'm also going to avoid polarising what I say by accounting for rumours, speculation and leaks. So the rumour that Assassin's Creed 2020 will be about Vikings is completely irrelevant to what we'll be talking about today. However, it makes one really nice thumbnail, so... And one final point, this will be based on my opinions, which means that none of this needs to necessarily happen, it's just what I would personally like to see. Please don't get upset over my opinion if it doesn't quite line up with yours, because you're perfectly capable of disagreeing in a civil way. There's no need for the ridiculous death threats that I get if I don't make this disclaimer as long as possible, because apparently stating opinions on Assassin's Creed has somehow become a capital offence. Anyways, if you guys are ready, let's get cracking. My first point is about the current gameplay engine used by Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey after it. In Origins it was fine because it was used in a down-to-earth way, however in Odyssey it felt a little bit stale. As much as the engine isn't bad, it does feel a little bit bare bones at times, and I think changing up the engine again is kind of what they need to do to make this Assassin's Creed game feel different from the others. Of course, Odyssey's not the first game in the franchise that reuses assets. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Revelations, Black Flag, Liberation, Rogue, Syndicate, they all do it. Even Assassin's Creed 2 uses one's engine, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. I just feel like for the sake of giving the next Assassin's Creed game an identity, something that it desperately needs, I think a spicing up of the engine would definitely not go amiss. Another thing that I think would actually be a blessing in disguise would be a smaller world map. Now you're like, what? Make it smaller? Are you mental? The answer to that question is yes, but that's not relevant. Put it this way, Assassin's Creed Odyssey's world map is simply far too big. So big that Ubisoft forgot to fill it with anything actually interesting. Therefore, reducing the size of the map in favour of a more flavoursome, layered open world experience is something that I'd like to see. The world map does not need to be gigantic to make it good, it needs to be good. The open world has been something that Assassin's Creed has always struggled with in some capacity or another. Origins handled it fairly well, however, on the whole, Assassin's Creed has always kind of struggled with its open world formula to find something that actually worked 100%. And making the open world as big as possible isn't going to help conceal it, it's just going to highlight it. This kind of brings me to my next point. Odyssey only really dealt in side quests and the occasional activity. There wasn't really much to engage in the world. And I mean, bandit camps don't really feel like engagement, it just feels too mindless. So my next point is side content outside of side quests, which really does need improving in the overall Assassin's Creed franchise, not just based on Odyssey. I feel like one really good way to do this and to handle this is the next Assassin's Creed game simply needs to utilise distractions to engage the player in a way similar to random encounters in games like Red Dead Redemption 2. For example, a cool thing to see in Assassin's Creed would be untold stories, little phenomena littered across the open world for players to discover and piece together on their own without any objective turning it into a box-ticking exercise. Making something simply a mystery that you can find in the open world to ponder over can actually be more interesting and engaging than an actual side quest sometimes, because nothing leads you to this location, there's no reason for you to be there besides from simply exploring, and once you find one you start looking for others. Of course, structure it with the side content. I doubt the RPG format is going anywhere anytime soon, so I think other cool things would be like collectibles in the world. Obviously pointless collectibles before were a problem with Assassin's Creed, but I feel like they're fine provided they're not a substitute for actual content like they are in games like Assassin's Creed Rogue. The more content there is to engage the player in various different ways to make things fresh and new each time, the better the experience is going to be. So why not use other things like random encounters, hunting challenges maybe, or even just unexplained hidden little secrets in the world to help spice it up and make the open world actually worth exploring. I feel like the structure of side quests could also see some improvement. Like I said, in Odyssey and even Origins to some extent, the side quests sometimes felt like a box ticking exercise and nothing more. There was no real way to distinguish them from one another. They often live to serve no purpose and you quickly forget about them as you go on to the next one that's almost exactly the same. Side quests need more identity. In Odyssey, the big problem was the lack of cutscenes. Everything was done through the dialogue system and it felt like a part of the gameplay. Sure, but it also didn't feel like it had much identity or flavour. At times it can feel like a step up from the simple characters talking to one another while you pan the camera around them and they actually do nothing, which you often found yourself getting in Assassin's Creed Origins. But the way I see it, most side quests really do need their own identity. Some quirks, for example, characters that are actually interesting, unique and memorable objectives that you'll remember in that side quest especially. And variety in outcomes doesn't necessarily mean the illusion of choice most of the time, but the most part is all the same and doesn't actually have an effect. Side quests need to have an effect on the character's development maybe, on your advancement, where appropriate maybe tie into the main quest from time to time. And when I say different outcomes, I don't just mean shag don't shag. As far as Odyssey is concerned, the only quest I remember vividly is the one where you wind up having sex with an old woman. It burns. Side quests need their own quirks and identity, and if that means that there's less of them overall, then so be it. For example, I can remember the Leonardo's War Machines and the Christina memories from Brotherhood far better than I can more or less any other side content in Assassin's Creed. That's because the game didn't focus on being the biggest thing possible. All it focused on was delivering a quality experience. If the side quests in their own way are as memorable as those, then I'll definitely be a happy camper. The game might be an RPG, but there is 100% nothing wrong with a scripted set piece every now and then. When it comes to the gameplay of the old Assassin's Creed games, the first thing that comes to my mind is the magnificent set pieces. A few of those most certainly would not go amiss. Moving on to my next point, I think that the RPG elements of Assassin's Creed need to be dialed back ever so slightly. In Origins it's fine, it works, it's great and all that, but in Odyssey I get the vibe that too far down the RPG path just isn't right for Assassin's Creed. I thought going in that dialogue options would be great, and you know what, in side quests why not keep them there. However, in the main quest stuff, I feel like the openness of dialogue options will get in the way of telling a concise narrative, which is something that I would argue Assassin's Creed needs. There's nothing wrong with making choices from time to time, I think that's pretty damn good, but I think too much focus on the role-playing element of the game is going to compromise that narrative experience. I think the light RPG format worked wonders in Assassin's Creed Origins, and that's essentially my example that I'm going to use here. But yes, I think a dial back of RPG elements in favour of better storytelling is something that I would like to see. I can't believe I even need to make this next point, but Assassin's Creed needs to have more Assassin's Creed elements. Assassin's Creed Odyssey only really touched down on the Isu stuff and had the modern day of course, but for the most part, the Assassins weren't even involved in this game. Neither were the Templars, because neither existed during the historical setting. You don't even have a hidden blade in this game, and it only shows up in the DLC used by another character. And Assassin's Creed being this out of touch with its own identity was almost comical, especially considering they just told an origin story the year before, and then they decided to set a game before that, which in my mind just undermines the point of telling an origin story. Whatever the reasoning behind that was, I'm not entirely sure myself, it never needs to happen again. There's no reason for an Assassin's Creed game to predate Origins. The game's called Assassin's Creed, it needs those core elements of Assassins, Templars, stabby hidden blades, you know, the usual. How that ever became not a part of an Assassin's Creed game, I will never understand. After all, it is called Assassin's Creed. Even in games like Black Flag, where you don't technically play as an assassin, it has Assassin's Creed elements integrated, so it's not even like the brand identity of the franchise is even that restrictive. Another thing I'd like to see it return to is more down-to-earth concepts. I'm not a fan of the over-the-top superpowered protagonists like Assassin's Creed Odysseys. It feels wrong, and I'd much prefer a more grounded experience where the protagonist feels exceptionally well trained as opposed to having a ridiculous superpower. The whole point of Assassin's Creed is this could have very well happened. Obviously not the Isu stuff necessarily, but I mean the backroom history that nobody knows about, and I kind of miss that somewhat believable atmosphere of it. Now, I don't really want to talk about modern day because, as the recent games have let me know, I don't care anymore. That being said, it wouldn't hurt if that was good, would it? And finally, the franchise needs concise direction. Assassin's Creed main titles need to find a solid direction, otherwise there's no real point. It's time we got stuff done in the modern day, for example, as opposed to game after game where nothing worthwhile in particular is achieved. I'd also like to see a protagonist we can invest in over the course of not just one, but maybe 2 or 3 games, as well as experience a story which feels like it serves a purpose with regards to the overall universe. I feel like Assassin's Creed is in desperate need of this, and it would certainly be essential for Assassin's Creed to return to form in my eyes. But I guess that concludes everything that I want to talk about in today's video. So of course, please do let me know what you want for the next Assassin's Creed down in the comments section. But anyways, please do bear in mind that I do not want Assassin's Creed to fail. I have a lot of love for the overall franchise, and would love nothing more than to see it return to its amazing form that it used to have. I've kind of grown tired of the flip-flopping and would like to see some consistent quality, and with rumours of Ashraf Ismail and his team helming the next game, I have no doubts that they'll try their very best to please as many people as possible. And of course, with the rumours of Norse Scandinavia and Vikings and the like, I feel like that'll be an exciting little setting to explore if nothing else. But beyond that, there's not really much worth talking about, so I'm going to conclude this one here. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff, I'd really appreciate it. Maybe even consider becoming a patron if you want to. I mean, you don't have to necessarily, that's completely up to you. I think it's a good deal, but obviously I'm biased. Anyways, this video has gone on far enough, so I guess I will see you all very soon with another video at some point.